Good evening, everyone. It is the 14th of November. And I just have to wonder, as we have another episode of the Hillbilly Think Tank here with me, Spencer Keck, are we tired of winning yet? You know, just don't quite feel like we're winning yet. I feel like we've gone a little further away from winning, matter of fact. You know, I have folks that I really appreciate. They're small business owners in Hardin County. And I've talked to them and have seen that they are not getting the business that they used to get. And that is all due to the fact that soldiers weren't getting paid. The staff, the civilian staff on base at Fort Knox, they weren't getting paid. And that is millions of dollars worth of investment in our community. When those folks leave the base, they're stationed there, and they come out and they buy meals in our local restaurants. They drink coffee at our local coffee shops. You know, it's just not something that you can jump back from and say, oh, yeah, after the longest shutdown in U.S. history and the longest period that local Hardin County businesses have seen, where they haven't been able to get any of those paychecks invested back into the community, local communities aren't feeling good. You know, it did not help also to have SNAP money cut off so that local grocery stores didn't have folks out buying the food that they needed to survive. It didn't just hurt the people that were going hungry. It hurt regular mom and pop grocery stores. We do still have some of those here in Hardin County, believe it or not. And we definitely have great food trucks and other small businesses that did not have the folks coming out from that base with their paychecks, whether they're civilians that live in Elizabethtown, civilians that live in Rineyville, civilians that live in Cynthiana, live in Radcliffe, but work in Fort Knox. And those folks were furloughed or they were going to work without pay on the base. As I've talked to you about the gate guards that were going to work without pay on the base every single day, guarding our nation's gold reserves and our other military assets right there in the base, weren't getting paid. They weren't going out there and spending their hard earned dollars and investing them back in our Hardin County community. That's something that us Hardin County folks, we just can't have happen again. That was a long shutdown so that we could do what? Prevent the Epstein files from being released. As we know, just today, there's been so many bombshells coming out, just one after the other. And it's obvious that we have a large group of pedophiles internationally that are being protected by not releasing those Epstein files. Epstein wasn't just servicing himself with young ladies. Today, oh boy, it's big. So are we going to, in January, when it comes time to vote on another stopgap government funding package, are we going to just shut down the government again? Because by January, folks are going to know that their health care costs skyrocketed December 31st. And that what they had under the Affordable Care Act is not going to be revoted on again. We're not going to, regardless of what the Republicans told the Democrats they're not going to vote to reauthorize the Affordable Care Act funding that makes living easier for Americans, not just in Hardin County, but all over the nation. And Kentucky has a lot of places where there are very poor folks that cannot access health care if it wasn't for the Affordable Care Act being funded. In Hardin County, though we're doing better than many other counties in this nation, we are increasing in investments. Blue Oval SK, bringing in a lot of other folks to build stuff in conjunction with Blue Oval SK. But we know that the brake plant is closing down, losing 450 jobs there. We just had a very long shutdown that made people. I know a coffee shop that I used to, love. They had to sell out recently, and not having folks coming from the base to invest because first Doge canceled a lot of jobs on the base. And then we had this long shutdown. So that's two major groups of hard, well-earned paychecks leaving the base, coming out, being infused into our Hardin County economy. But because of Doge eliminating many important jobs on base, and then the shutdown eliminating more and or furloughing people or making them work without pay for a very long time, many businesses are hurting bad now. And it's not just going to go away because these people are going to get their paychecks. These people have now had 2 months of unpaid bills that they're going to have to pay. That means they're not going to be out there at the food trucks that I love and don't want to see go under. They're not going to be out there buying superfluous lunch. They're going to be making their own bologna sandwiches at home in order to recover from what they lost for 2 months of shutdown. What on earth are we doing? How long are we going to protect international pedophile rings, which start at the top of our government and travel all over the world? There's many people involved. We know that the owner of an Italian vehicle company was part of visiting Epstein Island. We know that many U.S. politicians visited Epstein Island on many occasions, hung out with Epstein in New York, hung out with Epstein down in Florida. And yet we had a shutdown because we did not want newly elected officials to come into Congress and vote on releasing the files. So all this had to suffer because we didn't want those files released. We also gave the billionaire class the tax breaks that they wanted. They don't want to pay any taxes. They want us to have that burden only on us. They got what they wanted. They wanted to defund the Affordable Care Act. They got it. Yeah, we get this milquetoast promise of a vote on it in December. Yeah, I think there's about as big a chance of that happening as there is of elephants growing wings or frogs growing wings. No, it's not going to happen. When pigs fly and monkeys fly, we'll see the Republicans actually come up with a health care plan that's going to help the average Joe. What we need is for every American to get the same health care plan that Congress gets. That's what we need. If those jackasses can have a long vacation like they just got paid the whole time, then and their health care was paid for that whole time. They had any emergencies or their family had any emergencies, they didn't have to worry. They got to go get full coverage. Well, you know what? Every working American deserves that same health care coverage. And then we'll never have another shutdown because those folks in Congress know that if they shut down the government and it shuts down everybody's health care, they're going to have to get back to work and get serious. But as long as they know they get paid during shutdowns and they get their health care during shutdowns, they don't care what they do, as long as they're doing the bidding of the billionaire class. And this has got to stop. Hardin County needs better than this. Let's give them better than this. Let's vote up and down our tickets to make sure we put people in office that care about us rather than the billionaire class, to give a crap about the working class in this country. The folks that work hard, but the 1 in 8 Americans that still, even though they work hard, need food stamps. We should not look down on them anymore. We should never allow them ever again to have to go hungry. We should make sure that every person that works on Fort Knox doesn't have to worry about losing their job, and all of the folks out here in Hardin County that rely on folks leaving that base and spending their paychecks are going to be able to do it, right? Because we got some great businesses out here, but they suffered greatly when they couldn't take their kids out to eat. They couldn't take their kids to Malibu Jacks. They couldn't take their kids to play putt-putt because, hey, they were eating rice and beans, hoping to get paid. Y'all, we can do better. Let's do better. Have a great night. Love your neighbors as you love yourself. Remember, we are our brother's keeper. We're our sister's keeper. We know it, and we are going to show it. Have a great evening.